Hey everybody, today we'll be continuing with coverage of the 2018 War of the Ring World Tournament. This is game 2 of a best of 3 between Jason, saved by him, versus Peter M. So let's get started. Jason is the Free People this time, and Peter M will be Shadow. Peter M decides to allocate 0 eyes and rolls 1 to the hunt. Here, Peter has Horde from the east. We'll look high and give it to us. His first action is to play a card to draw another one. Next, he uses a muster to bring down Isengard, very standard. Hopefully to brings out Mr. Saruman to get that extra action die too as well. Jason finally makes a move and decides to move the Fellowship. Rolls 1 at 6. Shadow rolls a 6, or rolls a 2. Here, Peter does a double army move from Barad-dûr to Gorgoroth, and from Far Harad to Near Harad. Probably planning for a Gondor attack, or at least threaten it. Jason decides to move once more. With only 1 die, that's usually a very good chance that they will not get revealed, so it's always good to move when the Shadow only has 1 die in the hunt box. He needs a 5 to hit, and he rolls a 4, so close. Here, he does a character action move from Gorgoroth to Morannon. Jason decides to use a Will of the West die and decides to move a 3rd time. Hopefully he does not get revealed, because if he does, he'll most likely be going towards Goblin's Gate and towards the Dew Line, as if he gets revealed on the 3rd, he'll be stuck in Moria, and usually good things do not happen in Moria. Needs a 4 to hit, and he rolls a 3. Here, Peter M moves out his army from Morannon into Darlan. This is usually a very good move. This way he can threaten the Dew Line, Gondor, or Rohan just by moving. But here, if he moves it here, the Free People player might not know which way he goes. Whereas if he decided to move from Minas Morgul into North Ithilien, if this was a 10 army, the Free People player would definitely know he would be going towards Gondor. So this is always a good move when you're lacking other military moves, or you'd like to hide your true intentions as Shadow. Here Jason does a hybrid move and decides to move the elves down 1. Peter plays Gives It to Us, which gives him a red 1 tile, stop and reveal, if they ever get to Mordor. Here, this is round 2. They each draw a card. Peter M gets Many Kings of the Service of Mordor and the Lidless Eye. Pretty useless this early on, but Many Kings can be very useful. Eventually, he can put in 2 regular units in North Rune and South Rune, and he'll have 2 10 armies, or close to 10 armies, to attack the Dew Line. And Jason draws Círdan's Ships and Bilbo's Song. Círdan's Ships isn't very useful right now, but if Peter decides to eventually attack Gondor, Dol Amroth, or Pelasgier may be quite hard to take. Jason gets a really nice roll here with 2 Will of the West. Possibly Gandalf might be dying this round. Jason decides to move quickly and decides to not pass. At this point, I'm not sure why. Usually it's really good to see what the Shadow does before you make a move. Since he is also in a Free People stronghold, the Shadow can't play any character cards like Orc Patrol or Isildur's Bane, because he is protected by a stronghold. The only card that I can think of right now is maybe Cruel Weather, but if the Shadow does decide to play Cruel Weather, he would just be wasting a move, as the Trollshaws or Fords of Broom is actually 1 step ahead of where he needs to get to in Mordor. So let's see. 2 at 6. Let's see if Peter gets it. And he does. And he draws a 3, exactly what Jason needs. And he sacrifices Gandalf. Here, Peter can decide to forego getting Saruman, but a die for the future rounds is quite handy. Let's see if he decides to do that. In the meantime, he does a double army move from Dagorlad to the North Anduin Vale. Looks like he'll be going all do this game. Jason passes, and Peter decides to move from Moria into the Dimral Dale. Look like to hope to siege Lorien and Woodland Realm at the same time. Jason decides to make another 5th move, so this time if he decides to go through Moria, he'll be landing right around Parth Celebrant, or in Rosgobel or Carrick if he decides to go towards the Dew. Let's see if he gets it. 2 at 5, rolls a 4 and a 2. Unfortunately, Peter decides to move up, continuing his march to the North Dew line. Jason again moves the elves down 1 towards the political track. Hopefully he'll get at least 1 elf elite here in the Woodland Realm. I'll make it that much harder to take. Possibly next round, if he rolls an army, he may be able to move a regular or the regular and leader into the Old Forest Road. Peter does decide to get Saruman, seeing that Jason no longer has Will of the West, so he can't get Gandalf this turn. And Jason plays the Power of Tom Bombadil, which moves the Northmen down 1 and protects the Shire, Buckland, and Old Forest from being attacked without discarding this card first. Peter then plays many kings to the service of Mordor, so hopefully it looks like he'll be recruiting 2 in North and South Rune and possibly 2 more in Umbar or in Nir Harad. Let's see what he does. Yep, he decides to put the 2 in Nir Harad. 3rd round, they both draw cards. Peter gets all shadows. The shadows moving. This way he can sacrifice a Palantir to move 4 armies, essentially grabbing him an extra action. And the Balrog of Moria, which is perfect since he is preparing an attack against Lorien. Or he can, if he wants, he can also play it on the table, and if the Fellowship ever moves past Moria, he can discard this to draw an extra tile. Jason draws Book of Mazrabul and the Deadman of Dunharrow. 2 very good cards in the right situation, but as of right now, they're not quite useful yet. Peter allocates an eye, rolls no eyes, and Jason rolls a single character and 2 Palantirs. Of course, Peter plays Balrog of Moria, right on the table, because do note that even though this is played on the table, if the Fellowship does not decide to go through Moria, he can use this as a combat effect. Jason passes. Peter draws a strategy card. He draws Mustering of a Long-Planned War. This allows him to draw, or this allows him to play 5 more units in Gorgoroth and Nirn, basically a full 10 army instantly. But that is really only useful if he decides to attack Gondor. Jason passes again, and he draws a character card, this time the Palantir of Orthanc. Ooh, this is a good card, but as of right now, he doesn't have any Palantirs yet, so he may decide to play it anyway for future card draws. Here, Jason decides to separate a companion. He decides to choose Legolas. Here, he has 5 movement built up, and Legolas has 2 leadership. Or no, he has 1 leadership, 2 movement, which allows him to go 6 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, sorry, that's 5. And then plus 2, 6, 7. Into Dale. Here, Peter decides to consolidate his eastern army to East Rune, possibly to do a attack on the dwarves, while the Sauron army here attacks Dale or perhaps Woodland Realm. Jason plays the Book of Mazrabul and gets the dwarves directly to war. Very good move. Now the dwarves, if Jason musters 1 or 2 elites here, this will be a very, very hard stronghold to take, especially with these 2 armies, but we'll see if Peter's mind changes or if he still tries to brute force this. So he still decides to try to brute force it. Moves an army from North Dunland to Moria to hopefully attack Lorien. Jason, of course, puts an elite. Oh, sorry, nope. He decides to draw first to see if he draws Dane's Ironfoot Guard. And he draws Grimbjorn, which allows a elite and a leader in Carrick if he decides to play it. Here Peter moves up to north, Ruin, preparing his attack. But note that Sauron is not at war yet, so they'll be staying here for another turn while. Jason then moves an elite in Erebor, which kind of solidifies Erebor. If Peter does decide to attack, this will be a 4 elite stronghold, which is a very strong stronghold to take. But if he doesn't siege this soon, though, Jason can amass a huge army here and eventually do a counterattack to retake Woodland Realm, Dale if they are taken, or even a Free People military victory by going towards Dol Guldur or even Mordor. The Shadow plays a Palantir as his last action. Hopefully he's hoping for a couple of Palantirs, or a ring at least, or a Will of the West if the Free People decide to get rid of the card. Cards are drawn. Jason kills House of the Stewards. Looks like he does not plan on separating Boromir. And Peter, of course, kills the Lilith's Eye. The effect is not very good, and its combat effect is also not so good. So perfectly fine card to discard when you have one too many. He does end up drawing a Day Without Dawn. However, it's not active yet as the Sutherlings and Mordor guys aren't at war yet. Fear, Fire, and Foes, and We Prove the Swifter are now in Jason's hands. Could be a fast movement towards Dol Amroth soon, or we'll see. Peter allocates no eyes and rolls 3. And Peter draws the elusive Will of the West. Let's see if what happens. He passes. Peter decides to put Sauron to war. Hopefully he'll be attacking Dale, or more likely the Old Forest Road, and he'll have the Sutherling and Easterlings attack Dale. Jason decides to move. He wastes no time. 3 at 6. He rolls the 6. He draws a 2. Yeah, again, no reveal. Looks like a very healthy, fun time for the Fellowship. He takes 2 to the chin. He does not want to risk randoming Strider here, as he knows he has a Will of the West and We Prove the Swifter, which will land him directly into Dol Amroth if he chooses to play this card. Here he attacks Dale. Here Peter doesn't really declare which one, but oh, never mind. Sutherlings aren't at war, so the only choice is the Sauron army. Ooh, great move. Jason plays Scouts, so he has a choice to either retreat into Erebor or Woodland Realm. Here, most likely he'll retreat into Woodland Realm as Erebor is already at war, and if worse comes to worse, he can muster another elite using this Will of the West or using Dane. But right now, Woodland Realm is a lot weaker and a lot more simple to getting taken over, so I suspect he'll be going to Woodland Realm. Let's see what he does. Oh, he actually plays Swarms of Bats. So actually, Scouts does not matter at all, as he'll cancel his card. Peter rolls 2 6s, which eliminate Dale. And Jason rolls nothing. So the Shadow's army is perfectly well intact. Up here, and we see that Peter recognizes his mistake. If he had gotten the Witch King earlier, he would have been able to use a card draw and drawn 1 extra card. The rerolls didn't matter since he ended up getting 2 6s in his combat anyways, but the card draw could make a difference in the end. We'll see.
Is never late, nor is he early.
Here, Jason gets Gandalf the White, puts him in Fanghorn. Pretty standard. But I think one thing that he would have considered if he did not attack here is put him in Rivendell, and with Fear, Fire, and Foes, he could have brought the Northmen to war. But of course, since they are already at war, that wouldn't have been very good. So I think Fangorn was the right choice here. Here, Peter finally gets his Witch King, puts all nations at war. And here, instead of using We Prove the Swifter, Jason decides just to move Strider 9 spaces from Rivendell into Edoras, looking to bluff, or in this case, since he has Dead Men of Dunharrow, use Dead Men of Dunharrow and Pelagier. And of course, here on who needs to be the guide, here doesn't really matter. Axe and Bow and the Horn of Gondor, none of them have been seen, so you have equal chance of drawing either or. So he decides to put Boromir here as he thinks he'll draw Axe and Bow first. So we'll see. Peter plays Ulag High. He gets a place in Elite somewhere. And he decides to place it in Dimril Dale right outside Lorien. Here, Jason again plays Deadman Dunharrow. Gets 3 regulars in Pelagier, and Peter puts the Sutherlings 1 step closer to war. Here's round 5. They both draw. Peter needs to get rid of a card here. He has New Power of Rising and one with Sorrow and Toil, which is a pretty decent card. But since Gandalf is already out, Legolas is already out, best case scenario, he gets 4 cards out of the Free People's hands. However, if he's able to, the hobbits using their guide ability can circumvent that. Whereas Jason has drawn the last battle, not a very good effect, but a great combat effect, and Challenge of the King, which is able to get rid of some eyes. Let's see what Peter decides to discard. And Peter decides to get rid of One with Sorrow and Toil, as he doesn't think ripping most likely two cards from the character is not worth playing. He rolls and he adds an eye. And the first action Jason does correctly, of course, is put in Elite in Erebor. Now if he doesn't quickly siege this, Erebor will be very hard to take and may even become a hindrance, disallowing taking over of Woodland Realm and Dale. So let's see what Peter does here. He plays New Power is Rising. This is the strongest muster card. It's essentially 1, 2, 3, 4 muster dice, all for a Palantir die. So this is a great card for the Shadow. Oh, and here he gets rid of the Palantir of Orthanc, which is a good choice. I'm sure he's saving this Will of the West for his coronation of Strider. Peter decides to move, does a double army move. He moves, where does he move? Isengard. So he moves from Moria into Dimril Dale to get rid of a siege in Lorien, and from North Dunland to South Dunland. Here Jason passes, and he decides to attack Lorien. They go into siege, and here Jason decides to put an Elite in Woodland Realm. And Peter sieges Woodland Realm, leaving Erebor alone. So here, if he doesn't take care of this soon and siege this, Jason may have a chance to retake Dale and Woodland Realm if he is not careful. Let's see what happens. Jason passes. He attacks. Peter decides to attack Woodland Realm. Here, probably Deadly Strife. That's a really good card to use against an army of this size. Hopefully he'll get 5 hits and just destroy all in one go, but we'll see. Fear and Fire and Foes is played, and Foul Stench. So if Shadow hits at least twice, they'll cancel 1 hit, and Foul Stench cancels all leadership rolls for the Free People. Ooh, and Peter gets 2 hits. Jason gets 1 hit. And because Shield Wall is played, he'll only take 1 casualty. And Jason decides to downgrade. Peter draws and presses. decides not to use the card. Jason plays Sudden Strike, which he gets a free leader attack. He rolls a 3, does not hit. Well, let's go towards the regular. 3 hits by Peter. Very strong attack. Jason rolls 1. And since he has no other elites, he cannot downgrade and press again. Aragorn is crowned. Here, he just tries to get rid of the one last regular in Woodland Realm. Dreadful spells. He'll take 3 dice at 5. And he rolls a 5 and he gets it. Very nice. Here, Jason decides to move. Again, he is safe. Here, Peter uses a ring, changes it, the Palantir as a character dice, and he moves on Nazgul, hoping to capture Lorien. Turn 6. Peter draws Return of the Witch King, and on they went. Jason draws Wisdom of Elrond, not quite a very good card at this time, but he draws the Great Company, which can be great. If he starts to use his cards and drop and use this card as combat, it can turn the tides of any battle. Peter allocates eye, rolls nothing, no other eyes, additional eyes I mean. Here, Jason decides to recapture Dale, forcing Peter to take Dale unless he wants more North elites and leaders here. Yep, he says, I'll be there, but he'll have to bring the Southerns and Easterlings back to war. Muster another elite. Ooh. It looks like the dew line won't be held for very long, or at least Erebor won't be taken for a while. Here, it looks like he captures. He says he doesn't care if you take Dale. I'll take the Iron Hills and capture Erebor while you muster in Dale. I don't know if that was the best idea, but we'll see. Oh, and he's doing a double threaten move here in West Harwindor. Jason reinforces Erebor with another elite. Here he attacks Lorien. He's not worried about sieging Erebor anymore since the Free People no longer has any musters. Confusion is played, so any ones that the shadow rolls will be a hit to itself. And Peter fortunately plays Swarms of Bats, so that effect is negated. So he gets 1 hit against the elves and Lorien. Jason gets 1 hit back. Peter draws a new card. The king is revealed. The king is indeed revealed, which can capture him another good half-sized army here in Minas Morgul if he ever decides to attack Gondor. Here, Jason plays the Great Company. He'll exchange a regular for an elite and draw 2 strategy cards. Thranduil's archers and swords in Eriador. Unfortunately, Thranduil is a bit too late, so that won't be of much use to him. Although, if he decides to, he can siege Woodland Realm and then play this card to recruit an elite here. Here, Peter decides to play the King is Revealed. He wants another half army in Minas Morgul and extra Nazgul, always good. Jason passes, and now Peter tries to finish off Lorien and Galadriel. He plays Daylight, that forces the Shadow to only roll 3 dice. And Balrog, he decides to use the combat effect. He says he doesn't think the extra eye tile will do him any good, which I think I would have to agree with. What is this? 14 tiles left in the pool, and 1 extra won't do him any good. So I think it's better for him to try to get a military victory than a ring victory. Let's see what the Balrog does here. Durin's blade ends up not doing anything. Oh, actually no, he gets 1 hit. Peter rolls 1 other hit. Nothing on his reroll, and Jason rolls 1 hit back. Peter decides to press, and he draws the Ring Wraithsire Abroad, which is a great character card. I don't suspect he'll be playing that. No card. Oh, and Peter whiffs on this Lorien attack, unfortunately. If he had played Mustering the Long Planned War for the Desperate Battle effect, this battle would be over, but this is also a very good card to play if he ever decides to attack Gondor. Here, Peter just thinks hard on this one. I may consider using this if I was him in this position. The Desperate Battle, you already have a 10 army unit here and 5 army unit backup here, which can be very good. Of course, on the other side, you have Aragorn with a nice army in Pelargir here, which can do a nice counterattack, but we'll see what he does. Yes, he does decide to use Mustering, a long planned war, and goes for the 5 at 5. And he gets it, just barely. Here, Jason decides to move. Let's see if he'll get revealed. With 1 die, chances are low. Peter, yep, he's safe. Peter decides to muster some units. Here, he's preparing for a Free People military attack from Dale with Legolas, but I'm not sure if that'll be happening this round. Ooh, Curdin's ships. Jason plays this. This lets him recruit 2 elite elven units on the coastal line, so anything around this here puts him in Pelargir. This is now a very large army here. And with no leadership in West Harrondor, I don't think they'll be attacking anytime soon. The Ring Wraiths abroad, which is exactly what they need. Let's see what happens. He decides to attack forwards, forgoing the threat of any end cards, which in this case he doesn't have any, but of course Peter doesn't know that, but we'll see. Ooh, Peter rolls exactly 2 hits, which is needed to destroy these units. The west wall falls, and Gondor is nowhere left to be seen, as always. He decides to move in 3 elites and 2 regulars. Oh, Saruman. Oh, Saruman gets moved here accidentally. We'll see if they'll recognize that. Yep, he puts him back there. Alright, this seems like a great place to stop. See you next time for part 2.